everyone, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all doing well. Today's video is going to be a review, swatches, and demo all about the brand new KYSHADOW palettes. The first one, the bronze palette, actually came out a couple months ago, so it's not a super new palette, but the burgundy one is pretty new. It's only about a month or two old. I was going to do a review all about the bronze palette by itself a couple months ago until I found out on Instagram that she was going to be coming out with the second palette from her line, which is the Burgundy Palette. I knew I wanted to do a video about them together, so that's why I waited a little bit longer to get my review out for you all, because I wanted to show you all some comparisons between the formula, the finishes of some of the eyeshadows, as well as the quality from her first release versus her second one, which is a little bit better in my opinion. So she did make some improvements to the first palette, which I will go into in my review. In all my reviews, I like to do a little demo of the eyeshadow palette, so today I'm going to be showing you guys the bronze palette, which is on my eyes right now. I will leave that demo towards the end of the video after the review if you wanted to stick around to see that, but I also used the Burgundy palette in my last tutorial, so if you wanted to see that one in action, I will leave the tutorial for that I used down below in the description box, or leave like a little annotation bubble right here, so you can go click on that and watch the video of me using that palette. So if you want to see my review and some swatches about the bronze palette and the burgundy palette from KYLIE Cosmetics, then just keep on watching. Before I get into the swatches of the eyeshadow palettes and tell you guys a little bit about each color, I wanted to show you guys the packaging of what you're going to be getting in the box. So this is what the packaging looks like. It says KYLIE KYSHADOW Pressed Powder Eyeshadow. It also has her little signature on the back, as well as the ingredients of the eyeshadows and the expiration date where it's made, all the information for them right there. So that's what the outside looks like, and then when you open it up, they look like this. They have the dripping eyes with the corresponding colors for the palette. So this one is the Burgundy palette. You can kind of see the red metallic right there, and then the bronze palette looks like this. Kind of has a little bit more brown and orange in the kind of melts or teardrops on the outside of the palette. I will say for the price of this palette, I do not like the packaging of it. For $42, I was definitely expecting at least a mirror in this. This is a really nice thick heavy cardboard packaging, which is not bad. I just expected more from more of a luxurious palette. It also has like a magnetic closure, which is nice, but again, I wish there was a mirror right here. You also have all of the names on the back of the palette, which is nice as well, but I wish they were actually on the palette itself, which is probably not much more expensive to do, but I wish they kind of did that for both of the palettes. So what they say, it says KYLIE right there. You have all the eyeshadows right in the middle. You get 9 shades in each palette, and then when you turn around the back, you pretty much have the same information from the outside box of the packaging. It says all of the colors. You have all the ingredients for each one, where it's made, the expiration date. Now when I first looked at this palette, I was a little confused at how the corresponding shades on the back kind of matched up with the shades inside. So when you look at the palette, it looks like this. You're gonna have the lightest shade right here, which is actually called Naked, and then this one is called Penny. If you kind of mirror it and laid it on top of each other, that's gonna be the names for each one. So this one is Naked and this one is Penny, and then if you flip it over, the one on the left is Naked and one on the right is Penny. So it doesn't really kind of like mirror back to back, but it makes sense when you like lay them next to each other. They kind of just correspond to each other. I know that's a little bit confusing. I know there was confusion, at least with myself, of how these were named and labeled, but again, I do wish the names were on the palette itself. This is what they both look like together or in comparison to each other if you wanted to see them side by side. So moving on to price and how much you're getting, these are each $42, which I mentioned before, but I do think they are a little bit steep for what you're getting and the packaging it's in. When I was comparing these eyeshadows and the size of these eyeshadows to my Makeup Geek ones, you're actually getting a lot less product in the pans of these than a regular Makeup Geek shadow. I believe you're getting 0.08 ounces in a Makeup Geek single pan versus this one you're only getting 0.05, which makes sense in terms of the price breakdown. When you break these down, 42 divided by the 9 eyeshadows, they cost about $4.66 a pan, which is a lot cheaper than a Makeup Geek eyeshadow, but I think for the packaging, I wish it was a little bit more luxurious than just a thick cardboard. I think I heard her say a couple months ago that she did want to bring out a palette that had a mirror, which I would totally understand to keep the price tag at $42 with a mirror, considering the price of the shadows per pan. But right now, I do think it's a pretty steep price for the quality of the eyeshadows and the packaging, like I was mentioning before. So I wanted to first talk about the bronze palette. Again, this was the first one she came out with. I'm actually a lot more disappointed with this one than the newer one. A lot of the shades in here are nice, but they're not amazing. A lot of the mattes in here are very chalky. They have a lot of fallout with them, and the shimmers, I wouldn't even consider them a shimmer shade. I feel like you really have to pack them on the lid or use a Fix Plus or something to spray your brush with and then put it on your lid, because you're really not going to get a lot of good color payoff with these. They're very, very sheer, and you really don't get a lot of shimmer to them, which I really like a shimmery eyeshadow. So this formula of shimmer really let me down, and there are only 2 of them in the palette. Everything else is a matte shade. I think the thing that I love about this palette is that she has a matte cream shade and then a matte black, which a lot of palettes don't do. I love having a matte black to kind of deepen up any look. I also love having a matte cream shade or a matte white to kind of set any of my eyeshadow primer or highlight my brow bone or inner corner, which is kind of what I used it as today. So I really do like this palette for that aspect of having a lot of those traditional colors in this palette to kind of help with any look that you want to create. There are a bunch of beautiful transition shades. You have some warm ones, which is Citrine right here. You also have Goldstone, which is a beautiful color as well, and then Bronzite, which is a really nice kind of dark, kind of neutral toned brown, which is beautiful for any look and kind of will go with anything. And I do think a lot of the mattes in here are very chalky. You have a lot of fallout and they kind of skip on the eye even when you have a eyeshadow primer on or you set the eyeshadow primer so nothing's gonna skip. I did have a little bit of trouble blending them out. The only one that I actually really enjoyed were Citrine and then Goldstone, which are these two. The bottom ones are quite powdery and chalky, and then this one I actually had the most trouble with. The other one that doesn't really perform well when you swatch it is Jasper, which is the matte cream shade, but I do find that when you use this with a brush, a fluffy brush, to either set it all over the eye, to set your eyeshadow primer, or to either pack it on the lid or the inner corner like I did today, I actually do like that one. It does perform way worse with your finger. It kind of comes out chalky and patchy, but with a brush it does build up nicely, so I like that color in this palette. But I feel like there are a lot of inconsistencies with the matte formulas in this palette, which is kind of a bummer. So here are the first 5 swatches from Jasper all the way to the middle shade, which is Citrine, as you can see. So as you can see, Jasper is a little bit patchy, and then here is the Quartz one, which is the first shimmer. It doesn't really have a good color payoff. The shimmer is not really there, and this was the one that I had a lot of trouble with blending out. That's the matte called Topaz, which I really did not enjoy. And then this one is the other shimmer shade that I don't find to be that shimmery. I wish it was more pigmented and more shimmery. And then this one is probably my favorite one out of the entire palette. I'm wearing that all over my crease today. It's called Citrine. It is the most beautiful warm orangey shade. It's not too burnt or reddy of a shade. It's kind of like that perfect bright peachy orange that a lot of people don't really like in palettes, but I think it's absolutely beautiful as a transition shade. Again, I'm wearing it on my eyes today to kind of blend everything out, and I love it. So here are the last 4 swatches of the palette, going from this one all the way down to Obsidian, which is the black in the palette. As you can see, the last 2 swatches, Bronzite and Obsidian, are quite patchy, and you can see just how chalky they are. These do have a lot of fallout. I was even noticing, which is my brush, that you really have to tap off the product to make sure that you're not gonna have a lot of fallout, but they are quite pigmented. You just have to blend a little bit more to make them work, which I don't have a problem with. I just wish they were a little bit more buttery and smooth. But I love this kind of all matte look that I came out with today, and it is using this palette, so I wouldn't say it's amazing. I do like the eyeshadows, but there's definitely better out there on the market. So the next palette is obviously the Burgundy palette. This is her newest one from her line that she released about a month or 2 ago. So this is what it looks like. If you had to put my name on a palette, this would definitely be it, because I love the tones in this, which is probably why I love my Anastasia Mono Renaissance palette or the Holy Grail palette from Violet Voss, which definitely have these same tones in this palette versus those two. So if you were debating to get this but you have the other two, this is probably not too necessary, because a lot of the shades in here are very similar to the ones in those other 2 palettes. But I do think that these shadows, the quality of them is so much better than her first release, the bronze palette. I think the mattes are so much creamier. They blend out much better. The shimmers are actually quite shimmery and like foiled looking when you use them on the eye. So I think this was a huge step up from her first palette to her second one. So this is what the Burgundy palette up close looks like. It goes from Naked right here all the way to Almond, which is the darkest one in the palette. It's absolutely gorgeous. Again, this is probably my favorite one out of the 2, just for the colors, not necessarily the quality. But again, I wish this had a mirror. I wish the names were on here, but the quality of the formulas on this are so much better. So here are the first 5 swatches of this palette, going from the top one, which is Naked, all the way to Burgundy. I will say Naked is quite hard to see on my skin tone, because it's pretty much my skin tone with a little bit of a shimmer to it. It's definitely more of a satin finish compared to the other ones in this palette. But these shadows definitely do have a lot of fallout with them, just like the other ones do, but I do feel like they blend out a lot easier. They're creamier to the touch with your finger and a brush, and I felt like when I used this middle shade, which is called Burgundy, it is so stinking pigmented. I had to tap off my brush so many times, because I would just dip it in there a couple times like I would normally do any other eyeshadow. I put it on and I was like so surprised at how dang pigmented that shade was. And if you don't really like a lot of color on your eye, you really have to go light-handed with it, because it can be kind of intense when you first put it on. But I do find that these are a lot easier to blend out once you have them on your lid. But these colors are beautiful. I do think the shimmer shade has improved tremendously. That is what this one looks like. It's called LA. It is right there. It's definitely more of a foiled metallic shade. shade. I felt like with the other shimmer shades from the first palette, you had to use Fix Plus or some kind of bonding agent to your eye to make that shimmer pop. But these ones remind me a lot of the foiled shadows from Makeup Geek, which are absolutely beautiful. They just glide on. They're so much more creamy, and you can even use your finger to tap it on to give it more metallic look. But I find that they just work so much better than the first ones in the palette, and it is different than the finish of this one, which is again more satin, and these ones are more foiled. So here are the last 4 swatches of the palette, going from Dubai all the way to Almond, which is this one in the very last row. So that is what they look like. You can see in the shimmer shades, the shimmer shades are not like a typical like shimmer which have chunks of glitter in them. They're just going to give you like a nice metallic foiled look. You can even see them back here how much dimension they have. When I first looked at this palette, I was quite nervous because unlike the other one, there is no matte cream shade. This one is actually pretty dark. It's called Naked. It's a little bit dark for me for a brow bone highlight or an inner corner highlight. It's a little bit too yellow, and it just matches my skin tone, so it doesn't really give me an illuminated look. It's still beautiful, but I wish there was something a little bit lighter in the palettes. And I was nervous that there wasn't something darker than Almond, which looks like this. This is the darkest shade in the palette, which is again the swatch right on the bottom. But when I used this, I was actually pleasantly surprised at how much darker the Almond shade went on my eye when I blended it out and when I packed it on my outer V. So I do think you can get away with this palette without using something darker, but I do wish there was a lighter shade in the palette for highlighting the brow bone and the inner corner. So all in all, I really do think I like the Burgundy palette a lot more than the bronze palette. I do like the colors in this one. I just wish the formula of the mattes and the shimmer shades were improved, and they definitely did that with the Burgundy palette, so I'm really happy they improved their mattes and their shimmer shades. So if you've been eyeing these for a while and you're not sure which one to pick up, I would definitely recommend the Burgundy palette over the bronze one. I just think the quality and the formula of the shades are so much better in this one. If you do like the shades in the bronze palette and like the tones of this one, I do think it's a good palette, but I would recommend getting it now with the free shipping that she has going on until probably the end of the holidays, because if you buy this, it's a $42 palette, you get free shipping over $40, which is definitely a good steal because I bought these when there was not free shipping, and I think shipping was like $8 or $9, which is completely insane. I would highly recommend getting any of her products now that you want, while there is free shipping for domestic orders over $40. So this one is nice. It's kind of a great starter palette, kind of has all the transition shades you need, the matte black, the cream shade that's matte as well, but they are harder to work with compared to this one, which definitely has a lot more color. It's probably not going to be everyone's cup of tea with the really dark burgundy shades, but it's perfect for this time of year, and I like the quality of this one again so much better. So like I mentioned earlier, I did demo both of these palettes. I'll leave the tutorial that I did using the Burgundy palette down below, like I mentioned before, in the description box. But if you want to see my look that I'm wearing today using the bronze palette, then just keep on watching.
Let's have a bit of fun till I downfall. My love, if you feel like I do right now, don't say you're on the run to the other side, my love. But you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose. You say you wanna cry, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose. what you want.
Alright, so that's it for this video. I hope you all really enjoyed it and hope you found it helpful. If you want to see a second video on dupes for both of these palettes, please let me know down in the comments or give this video a big thumbs up so I know to do that for you all in the near future. I do have a couple of dupes kind of lined up already, but I did not want this video to be too long for you all. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it and subscribe if you haven't already. I love you all so much and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!